In 2016, what caused Trump to be able to win a narrow victory, as we've seen on this channel? We've looked over the 2016 election map, I don't know how many times, and I'm sure we'll reference it again in the future. What allowed Trump to win was, for the most part, tiny margins in swing states and key Democratic strongholds. Um, and we're looking here. Iron Range is back in business, says Trump. He takes credit saying he'll fight to flip Minnesota. Why is this important? Why is this coming up right now? New York Times: Biden holds 8-point lead in Michigan as he tries to reconstruct the blue wall. While Trump counted Michigan as one of his most surprising victories in 2016, he's struggling to maintain support among white voters in the state this year. I hate polls, and it's been said by various pollsters and political pundits that if Trump wins again this year, they're going to be out of a job, because there's no way that they will be allowed to continue putting polls and things like that out being completely, devastatingly wrong like they have been the last two elections. Is Biden winning? Are we believing the polls? And if we believe the polls, what does that say? If we believe the polls and they're wrong, what does that say about our entire system, the way we run everything, the way we do all of these things? I think it says that, well, assuming that Trump wins, I think it's going to say that not only are they wrong, they're just getting bad information, but that they are creating a bias. They're trying to maintain a bias, and they're trying to influence the elections. Why do I say that? In college and professional football, there's a phenomenon that happens towards the big matchups, like towards the Super Bowl. As you get down to the playoffs, people start picking their teams, and then they change up their team and who they want to win as people start winning. Same thing can be said in elections. They'll tell you, Pete Buttigieg is a great example. Pete Buttigieg took a early lead in the Democratic primaries this year. Why? Because early polling and early announced results showed him leading. So it got blasted out all over. Pete Buttigieg is winning. And thus, he kept getting more votes. Eventually, that came to a stop, of course. However, that's the phenomenon it seems like they're trying to create here, assuming that the polls are wrong. And I think we can safely assume after 2016 that the polls are likely wrong. There's, a 3 to 6 point margin of error? This could just be a closer race than what they want to admit. Before we dive into this, and before I bring this around to my real point, don't forget to like the video if you enjoy it. Leave me a comment, subscribe, and of course, share this video out. It's really the best way to help grow the channel and to make sure that people see a point of view that they might not be comfortable with, might not be aware of. Let's read a little bit. 4 years ago, Michigan proved one of Trump's most surprising victories and helped him barrel through the blue wall of northern industrial states that had favored Dems in presidential elections since the 90s. This year, Michigan is trending with those states again, but in the wrong direction for Mr. Trump's hopes of re-election. Recent polls have shown him trailing Mr. Biden in Wisconsin by similar or even larger margins. Trump is also behind in Pennsylvania, though polls have shown that race tightening somewhat recently, and he held 3 rallies in the state on Monday, a sign that his campaign believes it's within reach. Mr. Biden will win the election if he captures Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania and hangs on to the states Hillary won in 2016. But it's not likely that he's going to do that. The results in Michigan also indicate a tough race for the Republican Senate candidate John James. Despite Republicans' optimism about pulling off an upset against Senator Gary Peters and a first-term incumbent, the poll shows the Senate race aligned with the presidential contest, Democrats winning. So, two things here. Number one, for some reason, all of the polls are somehow skewing towards the Democrats. Number two, we've seen this before, and it turned out poorly for the Democrats. Trump has also recently pulled out of main or primary advertising in Florida, and the left and the media seems to think this is because he's conceding defeat there. But it seems to me like maybe he just thinks he's won. But we have a bigger point to get to. Despite what the polls are saying, we go over here to Fox News. Trump deserves a second term, even though he's a wretched human being, newspapers say. Joe Biden would be worse, a Washington State newspaper says. Washington State. An endorsement published this week, a Washington State newspaper said it agrees with President Trump's critics that the commander-in-chief has numerous faults, but that doesn't mean Trump don't deserve a second term. We recommend voting for him anyways. The spokesman review of Spokane wrote Sunday about the president. Because the policies Joe Biden and his progressive supporters would impose on the nation would be worse than President Trump. And this is what I think pollsters and calling people and all of that, there's this whole wide range of things they do. And I think they miss this, that most people see Trump, most reasonable people see Trump, regardless of which side you're on, and go, you know what? Trump is morally bankrupt. He's of poor character for a president. And his mannerisms and his speech are not consistent with the dignified office of a president. However, he's done a good job on the economy. He's pulling back on the wars. He's keeping his promises. And most importantly, the policies he wants to put into place are better for America than the policies Joe Biden would put in place. The editorial described the 2020 election as a choice between a wretched human being whose policies and instincts for helping America thrive are generally correct, and a doting uncle who would hand out gifts the nation can't afford in order to win people's love. Given that choice, the endorsement, written by publisher William Stacy Cowles, concluded, economic policy and principle should prevail. Vote for Donald Trump. That's right. That's where a newspaper in Washington is setting what could likely be considered a highly left Democratic stronghold. Probably one of the most progressive left states in the nation. California, Oregon, and Washington State were talking about breaking off from the union should Donald Trump win. And yet, you have people inside of these states willing to publish these endorsements for Donald Trump. I think that's a more powerful sign than polls. I think listening to people, real people, because I don't think anybody is undecided at this point, not a week out, but I think listening to people really talk about who they vote for and seeing where the votes are going right now, I think that's going to be telling. I don't think Trump's going to win by a landslide, but I think he's going to win. And then I think we run into future problems, and I'll wrap it up here. No matter who wins, the other side's going to challenge it. I will put money on that. I got $20 sitting right here. We will bet on this. It gets challenged. And then we go through the whole process of it being challenged. It might even end up at the Supreme Court. And then in February, We look for a counting of heads and a separation of people. A line drawn in the sand. Either you're with us or against us. I don't know if our leaders will call for it. Maybe it'll just be smaller factions of people, militias versus Antifa. But I look for it to happen. And I believe by February we're going to see some sort of kickoff to a civil war, some sort of hot conflict here in the States. That's all I got for this morning. Hopefully I'm wrong. But just in case, be prepared, boys and girls. And I will catch you guys in my next segment. Quick heads up, and I'll give you guys another one at the start of the evening video. I'm going to be out of town this weekend looking at houses in a new state. So once today's videos are over, I will see y'all again on Monday.